Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we will read a story about a man whose girlfriend cheated on him. And when he dumped her, she lost her relationship with him, her best friends, and even her apartment. This is a two-part story, so be sure to like and subscribe for part two. Let's get started. I, 22 male. Suspect something between my girlfriend, 22 female, and my friend, 21 male. We all live together. Am I imagining things? We are two couples living together, and we all attend the same university. The apartment was originally leased to my girlfriend of about 2 years, Alexis, 22 female, and our mutual friend Brooke, 22 female. The apartment is huge and expensive. There were originally supposed to be 3 girls living there, but the last one backed out abruptly. They were planning on moving somewhere cheaper, but they had put a lot of work into the apartment and loved it so much that they hated the idea of leaving. I offered to move in when my lease was up 6 months ago, so we could split the rent and utilities 3 ways. I was leaping over often anyways. Both girls were absolutely ecstatic about the idea. Shortly before I moved in, Brooke started dating my best friend Derek. This was cool because now both couples could hang out with their best friends and significant others all at once. It seemed perfect. Derek began sleeping over a lot, and when his parents sold their house and left last month, he temporarily moved in. We haven't really pushed for him to find a new place because splitting everything 4 ways is helping all of us so much. But again, only Alexis and Brooke are on the lease. The apartment owner surprisingly does not mind, as long as the rent gets paid because we are always quiet. Now, there have been 3 incidents that made me think something was up. If it weren't for these combined incidents, I would never make an accusation like this because Alexis is such a sweet and shy girl, and Derek has been a brother to me. They don't seem flirty, but as I mentioned before, all 4 of us are very close friends, so we spend a lot of time together. Now, Brooke and I have early classes, so we're gone by 8 a.m. Derek and Alexis start in the afternoon, so it's not unusual for them to leave together, though they usually take separate cars. One of these days, I decided to wait for Alexis outside of her class, so I could surprise her with lunch. I watched everyone shuffle out of the class, but Alexis wasn't with them. I texted her asking where she was, and she replied, "Just get out of class, gonna go home to study." I called her to see if I had just barely missed her or something, and there was no response, which I considered weird because she had just texted me a second ago. She didn't answer until much later, which is also unusual for her. She's one of those girls that's often on her phone. I ran into Brooke later, and she mentioned in passing that Derek had stayed home sick. She was going to bring him soup, blah blah. At the time, I didn't think much of it. When I got home later that night, I noticed Alexis's car was in the same exact spot she usually parks in guest parking because our unit only has 3 spaces. As a result, her car moves a lot. I asked her if she'd gone to class, and she got quiet before sheepishly admitting to skipping because she felt the professor sucked at explaining things. But she knows I hate it when she skips classes, something that's gotten her grades in trouble before, but she recently started doing better. I kissed her and said I trusted her judgment. While I was doing the dishes, she explained how she probably won't skip again because being bored alone in the house was the worst. I laughed, and we went about our business. At night, we went to bed, and as I laid there drifting off, it hit me she shouldn't have been alone because Derek was homesick, right? She was still up on her phone, so I popped awake and asked her where Derek was today since Brooke had said he was homesick. She seemed startled by the question, but that may have been from me being half asleep to suddenly wide awake with a random question. She said he was here a bit in the morning, but went to do errands or something. She wasn't sure. After the other incidents, I realized that the scattered way she answered this question seemed off, but that may just be my imagination. The second incident happened when I went to throw some stuff out in the kitchen garbage, and I noticed a condom wrapper that was the exact same brand Alexis and I use. It wasn't super visible, sort of tucked behind a cereal box, but the distinctive color caught my eye. Brooke and Derek always use a different brand. It was weird because we usually keep the wrappers in our respective rooms' garbage cans, so they never appear in the kitchen. Furthermore, because of exams and general stress, Alexis and I hadn't slept together in a few days. I didn't really dig around for a used condom or anything. I just went back to the room to check if any of ours were missing. I really couldn't tell because we buy in bulk. My first thought was that Brooke and Derek had run out and broken into our stash, and I was upset that they hadn't even asked. Later that night, I mentioned the condom wrapper to Alexis, and her eyes got wide when I mentioned my theory. She got unusually distressed. She's always very calm and went on a roundabout about them violating our privacy. I suggested we talk to them about it, and she immediately shut the idea down and made me swear not to bring it up unless they did it again. She didn't want to have this awkward conversation, which was weird to me because we're all generally pretty open about sex, given that we live together. Though it is possible that Alexis was being genuine because she's from a conservative small town and she doesn't talk about these things as much as we do. Now, Derek and I are cool with the dudes in the apartment next to us who are graduates of our university. We don't hang out or anything, but we have the kind of relationship where we make small talk about sports or whatever in the hall and are comfortable asking the other to keep it down without it being awkward. This takes us to the third incident. Last Monday, I was locking up when no one else was at the apartment when I ran into one of the guys from next door. We talked football for a bit, and then he mentioned that one of the couples in the apartment is really a fan of morning sex, and that the walls were way too thin. I laughed because Alexis and I usually had sex on weekend mornings when we had the house to ourselves. Brooke and Derek usually spend weekends at her parents' house about an hour and a half away. The more I thought about it later in the day, the more I realized we hadn't been having morning sex in about a month on the weekends. It had been more towards the evening, or not at all. Did he mean on weekdays? My heart sort of dropped. I kind of want to ask him to elaborate, but the conversation ended and I feel like I missed my chance. Plus, it's a weird thing to ask, and I feel like I must be paranoid. So there you have it. Am I crazy? Am I looking for signs that aren't there, or is something up? And if so, how do I proceed? I don't want to ask her just yet because one, I don't want to come off as crazy and jealous if nothing happened. And two, if something is up, I don't want them to start hiding it better. I was thinking of dropping by one of those mornings they're alone together, but I don't know how to time it right. If I drop by too early or late, they might get more cautious. The poster responded to some of the comments. The first answer, I feel like I'd be violating the promise I made to her just to make a huge accusation against her. If nothing's going on, I think I'll end up damaging the relationship. Brooke is sort of a loudmouth and much closer to Alexis than me. I feel like she'll definitely tell her. The second one, that sounds like the best plan. I'm just praying I time it right. I'll definitely update if anything new happens. Update 1. The majority of you suggested that I speak to Brooke and/or attempt to walk in on the act. I decided on doing both. Sunday night, everyone was back in the apartment. I had every intention of speaking to Brooke about the neighbor's comment alone, but before I could, she said something that completely threw my theory off. She told Derek to get to bed so he wouldn't be tired for work in the morning. What I knew, Derek has a job on campus, but he had always worked at the same night shifts. Being as casual as possible, I inquired how long he'd been working mornings and when he started. He said he picked up the extra shifts a month ago and worked at 9. I leave at 7:45, so it's possible for me not to have noticed that. I spent the rest of the night trying to figure out whether he was lying about that, whether he had still had some mornings here at home, whether Alexis could be seeing someone other than Derek in the mornings like some of you suggested, or again, if I was just a paranoid loser. I went to bed feeling emotionally drained and confused. The next morning, I left for classes as usual and operated on autopilot. I alternated between thinking I'd run home to check on Alexis and thinking I had way too much work to run around, based on a theory that I wasn't even sure about anymore. In the end, I walked out of my first class and straight to my car to go home. In a weird way, I sort of wish I hadn't. When I got to the apartment, Derek's car wasn't there, just Alexis's. I walked to the apartment with my heart pounding, all sorts of crazy. I don't know what I was expecting outside the apartment door. I could immediately hear a guy's voice inside. I heard him talking and laughing and a soft feminine mumble replying and giggling back. I've been on this subreddit long enough to see all the different reactions people have to this situation. I never once contemplated what I'd do. I pressed my ear to the door and see if I could make out what they were saying, but I could only make out a word here and there. There was a lot of giggling. Then I heard the sound of Alexis being tickled and shrieking. Maybe I should have waited. More in retrospect, I wish I did, but I couldn't take it. As soon as I started fiddling with my keys, it was dead silence in there. She was effing Mark. I never mentioned Mark in the previous post, but he's one of the guys in the apartment next to us, not the one that tipped me off. He's the only one I've never liked. Effing know-it-all douchebag attitude, always made inappropriate comments towards both girls, but never thought anything of it. As soon as I opened the door, they both gave me a deer in headlights look that removed any naive doubt I may have retained that the situation was innocent. I was planning on yelling at them or demanding answers, but my eyes began to well with tears. I didn't want them to see that crap, so I said, "Nice, real effing nice," and bolted back to my car. I heard Alexis yelling my name in the hallway and picked up the pace. I sort of expected her to be chasing me, but by the time I got to the car, there was no one following me. I drove to a park that's near the apartment and sat there in disbelief. My first thought, weirdly enough, was how is my family going to take this? What the hell am I going to tell them? My family effing loved Alexis. They joked about our wedding and regularly called her part of the family. Then I started thinking about living arrangements. Our finals end in about 2 weeks. There's no way I can handle moving now. I'm applying to an extremely competitive graduate program, and I can't let anything get in the way of that. Definitely not this. I am welcome to stay at a friend's home. I'm going to have to go back home to get some clothes sometime. I'm planning on going during this lab period. I know Alexis can't skip tomorrow. It took her an hour to start blowing up my phone, but once she did, it didn't stop. She started off by asking me to come home so she could explain. Before I even had the chance to respond, she sent another one begging me to come back because she was having an anxiety attack, something I always helped her through. Maybe I'm heartless, but all I could think was, good, you earned it. There was a pause, and then she sent, I don't know why you get so jealous. We were just hanging out. I waited, and then she sent, look, I know it looks super sketchy, but believe me, if I were you, I'd think the same thing, but we weren't doing anything. He needed advice on girl problems. You have to believe me. No, I don't. Normally, I would have gotten a weird sense of satisfaction watching a cheater scramble to cover their ass, but my stupid brain just kept replaying all these great times we had together and wondering if she was cheating then too. I want to know when this started, but at the same time, I'm worried it's been going on for longer than the month I've suspected something. I received a text later that night from a number I didn't recognize. It was the nice dude from next door. He said, paraphrasing because it was a long text, that he got my number from Derek. He was extremely sorry for what I was going through and that he would have told me sooner, but he wasn't completely sure. He said he knew his friend was seeing a girl with a boyfriend, but didn't put it together until he learned the girl's name. As many of you suspected, the comment was him trying to tip me off. So yeah, I guess he's bro of the year. I don't think Derek and Brooke know yet. I haven't texted them. I haven't found the words. I know it's going to turn our living arrangement and friendships upside down. I guess I should message them before Alexis paints a different picture. And that's the end of part 1 of this story. What do you guys think about the situation so far? Do you have anything to say to the poster? Let me know in the comment section below. And I will see you guys on the next video.